Hello and welcome, Interjection here with my first video in a brand new series of mine, which I'll be calling Age of Empires 3 Coaching with Interjection. So normally I post very high level games, some of the best players playing Age of Empires 3, some very competitive games, but today, this video, well, at the very beginning of this video, I displayed an email from a player named Anum, and that player is the player we are watching right now. This player, playing as Red, playing as Spanish. That was quite a nice email, and it was in response to a video I made a while ago saying, should I cast some lower level games where I point out their mistakes and flaws, and point out what they're doing well, and point out what they should do differently just to help those players improve as players. And obviously that kind of video is accessible to everyone in the Age of Empires 3 community who is, of similar ranks. These two players playing today, of course, are both Master Sergeants approaching Second Lieutenant, very close. So it is not a high level game, but I'm going to try and be as helpful as possible without being, too condescending or irritating. And the first thing I'm going to point out here, okay, so before I move on to what I was going to say, creeping this treasure, I creeped the first one very nicely, but then decided to give up and walk it towards the treasure, taking full damage from both coyotes, crack-shotted one, and then took full damage from the final coyote there. So you could have actually creeped two of the coyotes and crack-shotted the final one, or in fact you could have actually creeped all three of them, depending on if there were other decent treasures in the area. You haven't scouted any other big treasures, so you could have crack-shotting one of the coyotes there wasn't a bad decision at all. But okay, the first thing I was going to point out though is if we go to menu and then options, game options, and then click very far, you'll immediately notice that we are now more zoomed out. You want to do that because you can see more of the map then, and it really, I don't know, if there's units in the top right or left corner of your screen, then you can more easily see what your opponent is coming to do. We see a blue Carrera coming in. This is not, because the town center does ×2 versus, okay, he's gathering up the coin crate, and he's going to get Red's coin, which Red doesn't, need right now, that's why he left it on the floor. But now losing a Carrera, and only for 75 coin, that is not worth it in any way, shape, or form by any stretch of imagination ever. Because Carreras take a long time to train. I can't actually remember how long, but a regular settler, one of these settlers, would take 25 seconds to train. Carreras will take longer than that, and they cost 120 food. So you've just lost 120 food and a whole bunch of gather time. You're never going to get that settler back, and all you gained was 75 coin, though you did put your opponent 75 coin behind. Honestly, Red came off better there, so much better, and unbelievably better. That is never a good idea. So, what is going on? Okay, Blue bringing his Carreras in. Okay, so I did read the email he sent me was that Blue did some sort of settler rush, and this is by no means a good strategy ever. I mean, there are times you can use your settlers in combat, and French settlers are good in combat because they have a very large range damage, whereas, a regular settler only does 3 range damage. These have 11 range damage when upgraded at the market, which he has done. He's also got the hit points upgrade. Here, killing a settler, which is, you can do that. That's not bad. If you find a stray settler, your Carreras can kill it. Okay, you're calling your Minutemen, Red. There was no need to call them. Honestly, I wouldn't have done that. All it's doing is delaying your age up down. If you're doing a fast fortress, which it really does look like you're doing, then that's 150 food down, and that's that's going to help you age up. You're going to age up slowly here. All you needed to do really was just put 10 settlers in the town center, because your town center does 9 damage for each settler in it, I think, and then ×2 versus settlers. So you really didn't need to worry there. Now, War Dogs, there's no need to train them either. They're 75 food each. You're just slowing your age up down here, man. Honestly, not worth doing. These settlers are of no threat to you at all. These really, and these animals, so animals do ×0.3 versus, settlers. They do very little damage, and Carreras, the settlers, do ×2 versus animals. So, that was a waste. Sorry, man. I don't mean to be too critical, but you could have been, you'd be well on your way to aging. You'd be halfway through the colonial age right now. And honestly, your best bet if he's doing this kind of settler, in these circumstances, you want to get a unit out which does melee damage, because obviously Carreras resist 40% of ranged damage, so you want to get something out that does melee. In the next stage, you obviously have 7 Rodelleros, that's not a bad shout at all, and I wouldn't recommend sending crates, because he probably would just rush into your base and steal the crates. We'll see what he does do. Okay, now coming in, trying to kill some settlers, but it's not worth it for him. Obviously, the gather time, he's losing out on food gather time here. Obviously, could be collecting from animals. Okay, so he's got some settlers up here, which is good. Obviously, even if you are doing a settler rush, hashtag Azamp, and I think he's the only person who's come up with the viable settler rush, as both French and the British. Maybe I'll get him to send me a recorded game. But yeah, obviously you want to keep some settlers on food as well, because you want to maintain settler production here, which you're not doing. Hunting dogs going up, which isn't bad at all as well. But yeah, these were just, okay, so the cards he sent, 3 settlers and pioneers. If you're doing something settler orientated like this, then he's also got the market upgrade. So he's increased the settler hit points by 35% at the market and increased them by 65%. Or is it 60? Yeah, 65% at his home city. So, very decent hit points on these. They're very good for fighting now. But by no stretch, Pioneers isn't worth it. And it really isn't. Because in the colonial age, you have, shipments like 4 Carreras or 700 wood. That's worth so much. And it's just like, if you don't send it, then you're putting yourself at a disadvantage, because your opponent will send something similar. Okay, so collecting over here. Obviously, I'm not going to patronize you. You need to herd. And obviously you want to keep a close attention to that to have gatherers in your base. Okay, so just hitting the colonial age here. Blue now coming in to steal the crates, 200 coin, which I guess, now that these, you've got so many settlers gathering it up, and they're upgraded with, so much hit points, that is a good idea. That's not bad at all. Red, obviously, as soon as he walks in, as soon as those settlers are in range, you want to put 10 settlers in the town centre, because you can easily kill them off, and you would just damage his economy so much. Like, you're going to get so far ahead. For a fast fortress, when I hit the colonial age, when I do, I do train 2 settlers before going to fortress age. So you make 15 settlers, which you did do in age 1, then train 2 in colonial, 3 perhaps if you think you're not going to have the resources to age up, and then obviously you age up. 7 Rodelleros as your first shipment here. Normally 700 coin is sent, because it helps you get to the next age ASAP. But 7 Rodelleros first isn't a bad idea, because if you sent 700 coin, Blue would have just tried to collect it up, and that would have been really frustrating. But 7 Rodelleros is going to do, obviously, good damage. Not great damage, because they only have 11 hand attack, and these settlers have 360 hit points, because they've literally been upgraded by 100% of their hit points from various upgrades. But still, you're going to do good damage here, provided you can bring down, like, 2 settlers, 3 settlers. It's worth it in the long run, I'd say. So, not bad there. What you could have done versus anything settler orientated is obviously just abandon the idea of a fast fortress and switch some of your settlers to food, some of your settlers to coin, get 200 wood, build a stable, and start training hussars. Don't bother, completely switch strategies, because hussars doing 30 hand damage and have decent hit points are going to be very problematic for settlers here, and you could easily have brought all of those down with 7 Rodelleros plus a few cavalry units here. You want to make sure you're focusing down the weak one there. I think you did a good job, to be honest. That one's only got... Okay, so both of these have some damage on them. If you hadn't attacked them at all and had instead done that damage to this settler, you might have been able to kill it. I don't know, maybe, not quite, I don't think. But obviously, that's very difficult in practice to do. So, obviously, did a good job of killing those settlers, in my opinion. Okay, 700 wood on the way. Obviously, you sent 7 Rodelleros first, so it has delayed your age up. A good Spanish time with Spain, a fast fortress, is arriving at the fortress age at 7 minutes 30. That is a good time. It can be done quicker, especially if you find OP treasures. In this case, you haven't built a trading post either, which is a lot of Spain players will build. Obviously, put all of their settlers onto wood, get 250 wood, build that trading post, and then start trying to age up. That trading post kind of is instrumental. I'll switch back to Undertaker and see what he is up to. Getting placer mines there. Training musketeers now in the colonial age finally. His shipments here was 4 Carreras. Not a bad shout. Needs to get that economy going. 8 crossbowmen. And here, with those 8 crossbowmen are idle. Like, you can't send 8 crossbowmen as a shipment and not do something with them, because you either send 8 crossbowmen because you're being pressured and you need them to help defend, or you send them because you want to be aggressive. Okay, so now moving in, which is good. He's gonna have to keep training musket. Okay, now going back. But yeah, that's just want to emphasize, like, unit shipments are no good unless you actually are going to use them either for, you need them for defensive purposes, or you need them to be, you know, you're going to be aggressive the moment they arrive and you're going to push out when they arrive. Okay, so you've built a stable over here, which is, you know, fair enough. It's not seen by your opponent, but normally I place it near the TC because it can be defended there. Usually behind the town centre, because if your opponent walks behind your town centre, then you can trap them there by calling Minutemen and, you know, matting lots of units at any one moment here. But, okay, he's lots of musketeers in queue, fair enough, that's not bad. Bringing the settlers over, I just don't like it. I mean, in this, I don't think it's worth it. The only time you would ever, like, French gatherers are good to fight with, but only for defensive purposes, because if they have to move too much, you're wasting gather time. Like, I mean, if you could train these, I mean, they have 11 range damage and 360 hit points and cost 120 food. So if you could train these from your barracks in batches of 5, like musketeers, then yes, that would not be a bad idea at all, but you can't. They're gatherers, they train very slowly from the town centre, so fighting with them is not good. Okay, red getting your cavalry, losing some hit points on those, bringing them back, which is nice. Obviously you want to bring them back, you don't want to use them to fight. Sorry. Take a look at Annam, now sending 5 lancers too. You've been training hussars at the stable, idle settlers. You've been training hussars at that stable. Fair enough, you need military units, but honestly, you could have just saved the resources and trained lancers, which are just so much better, again, in these circumstances. Look at what your opponent has. He has mostly musketeers and crossbowmen. You're floating about 1.8k food here. You do not need that much food. You need to think about what resources you need. And obviously lancers or hussars cost, you know, a little, you know, mostly food and some coin. Okay, going in here, honestly, I wouldn't have gone in there. Okay, I go in once the lancers arrive. Like, try and time it as best as you possibly can for everything to be there in one moment. Like, even a few seconds is, you know, you're kind of not doing yourself a favour here. But in this circumstance, you want to focus down the musketeers first with the lancers and either the crossbowmen or the musketeers first, because those do the most damage, and then kill the Carreras last because they do the least damage and have the most hit points. You're going to lose that town centre. All this time you've only had 5 in there. You could have had 10, so it could have double damage output if you had 10 in there. And obviously it does times 2 versus settlers, so that would have been the most efficient unit to target, though you do want to focus down the units which do the most damage first. Okay, 4 lancers arriving. 2.3 floating food here. If you look, like, you've seen this coin mine, just put some settlers on it. And then you could, like, 2.3k food. When you think 1,000 resources is 5 lancers, you could have about 12, 13 lancers here. And 13 lancers plus what you already have, plus Minutemen, which you didn't, oh, you did call your Minutemen from earlier. But yeah, like, 13 lancers plus these lancers, no problem. You could just, no problem, yeah? So, floating a lot of food, which, obviously, that much, it's just not doing anything. Like, 1.5k food is like, not doing anything. Like, you want to spend your resources as quickly as possible, because if you stack them up, it's kind of like having idle settlers. Like, an idle settler's not doing anything useful, but even if the resources it's collected are not, you know, if you're not spending them, those resources collected aren't doing anything useful either. 5 hussars now on the way. Okay, that is, I agree with that, actually, because you're up against mostly Carreras now, which, you know, are damaged largely by, Okay, but Blue now bringing in cavalry, not a bad shout from him, obviously. Well, he didn't know you were training lancers, but cavalry, Blue, you know, hussars do well against lancers, because lancers only have 20 hand damage, and their ×3 multiplier does not do anything versus cavalry. We'll take a look at Undertaker and focus on him a little bit. Not training set, floating 2k food. What is it with floating 2k food, man? You don't need to do it. Sorry if I am being a little bit condescending. I don't mean to be nasty or offensive, but yeah. Okay, so Red finally pushing him back, has no town centre yet, so, okay, oh my lord, like, this many settlers, you do not need to queue that many, because, you know, that one's fine, because it's being trained, but that's 120, 240, 360, 480, whatever, etc., etc., that's a lot of resources not doing anything. It's the same as idle, like, in theory, the best way to train settlers is to just have one in production, and then as soon as it's trained, put another one in production. But, you know, in practice, that's, like, the most impossible thing ever. But that's why you'll never see higher level players have any more than 2 settlers in queue, because those resources could be doing something else. We'll switch back to Annam and see what he is doing. You want a floating 2k food again. See, there's a coin mine right there, man. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'll stop. But I think what you need to, obviously, you've sent 12 pikemen. They're here. What I personally would have done is think about my economy now. 1,000 wood. You know your economy is going to be better than his. You can see it in the score. So 1,000 wood is probably a better shipment now, because that will get you both these trading posts. It'll get you the upgrade for the trading post, which you can then configure both trading posts to wood, and then you can build a fresh town centre. Or you could do it differently. You could send the 1,000 wood, and then send the 1,000 wood and build a town centre straight up, and then collect some extra wood for, you know, the trading posts here. But, you know, 12 pikemen isn't a bad shout either. I mean, you can now push out. You've got the siege on the pikes. Your next shipment could arguably be 2 falconets, because you've got the pikemen to protect them with. Okay, so we'll switch over to blue. So blue has 1,000 coins stacked up. If he was in the Fortress Age, this would be, you know, but he's not. He's in the Colonial Age. If he was in the Fortress Age, obviously, once you have 1,000 coin, you can send a mercenary shipment, which he does not have in his deck. Always worth, like, for France, the best mercenaries are Swiss pikemen and Black Riders. Those are good mercenaries out of the ones that France has access to. For Spain, I believe Annam does have them, 9 Highlanders, and 9 Highlanders is good. That's a good Spanish one, and the other good one is the 12 Swiss pikemen. Okay, so calling Minutemen there, and bringing his Carreras out to fight. That's not bad. That's a good idea, to be honest. We'll go back to Undertaker, see what he is doing. Obviously, in this case, the Carreras are being used defensively here, so I'm happy with that. That's fine. You could have 10 in the town centre as well, but obviously these do 11 range damage and have a lot of hit points, so providing they're not taking too much damage, then or any damage, then you can have them shooting. Now sending Colonial Militia as his next card. Other cards he could have sent was 700 wood and the French Advanced Church. So I don't know. Okay, so now bringing another town centre up for red. Did not send that 1,000 wood. Obviously, I would have sent 1,000 wood to build a town centre, in my opinion. But fair enough, you know, only just getting it up. Obviously, I think getting it up sooner is much more important, because then you can start training settlers. I mean, you have a 19 settler economy, and your opponent has a 20 settler economy, and you got some seriously good settler kills on him, and he did this stupid settler rush. So I think, you know, having a town centre goes to show how big that is. I mean, you can't play without it for too long, really. But here he sent the bison, obviously, from the Lakota settlement. He sent Lakota hunting grounds, which is good, because he needs those gatherers there. Putting those settlers back in, which is not a bad shout either. Pop them out over this side, get a few shots off, pop them back inside, pop them back out again. To do that, you can just right-click them all, put them on Control 3 or something, and then press N on your keyboard with the town centre selected, which ejects all of your settlers. Then press 3, which selects all of the Carreras, and then right-click the town centre, or you can target a unit, put them back in, select the town centre, press N to eject them, and you can keep doing that with France, and that does good damage. And then, you know, there's no way they can get your units here. Town centres actually do 1.5 versus cavalry. So town centers are very effective against cavalry here, and cavalry have a low siege damage anyway, so bringing that down is, with cavalry, not by any stretch of my imagination cost effective, but I think here you're idling him completely. Like, there's really nothing he can do, like, with you outside his TC. So your options are either stay because you're going to idle him, but then either leave because you're taking mad damage from the town centre and his Carreras, and you're using cavalry which have low seats. So that, you know, it's there. I'm not sure. That's a grey area, that one, which was best to do. Obviously, it would definitely be best to seize the town centre if you had other units there. Sending 2 falconets. That's a nice shipment, but obviously it's probably one of the best Fortress Age shipments if you can protect them well. But at this point in the game, I do think 1,000 wood in a second town centre would have been a good shout, or building the trading posts and getting the stagecoach upgrade. Also a good shout. Obviously, well, if it was, like, 2 falconets is good, so I'm not gonna be too fussed about it, but something like 9 Rodelleros, that's not really good at this stage in the game. 9 rods isn't gonna help you out, unless, you know, he starts making a ton of cavalry or something, but obviously because Rodelleros are good against cavalry. But here I would definitely say 5 settlers or 1,000 wood is a better idea, because you can get the town centre up. Okay, so trading musketeers, which is a colonial age unit, that's not a bad idea, but it's not bad at all. I mean, you don't have the veteran upgrade, but you could get it. Yeah, so I guess musketeers, a lot of Spain players will ship, like, well, I will ship 12 pikemen, 9 Rodelleros, 10 pikemen, except I will ship all of the anti-cavalry whilst I am massing skirmishers with my economy. Obviously, the anti-cavalry protect the skirmishers, and at some point, usually quite early on, I do send the falconets as well. So, you know, my pikemen and Rodelleros, which I'm shipping, will protect the cavalry here. Sorry, will protect the falconets here. And, you know, I'm massing skirmishers as well. And then should I need more anti-cavalry, I will then start to train Rodelleros. I'm going to make a Spanish guide. That's going to be the first 0-2 hero style guide that I will make. A civilization guide. But here, I'd say musketeers were a good idea, because obviously they are, you know, they're good units, they do a solid ranged attack, they, you know, they've an okay, you know, good hit points, and they protect the falconets quite nicely. The other option you could have had was training dragoons, which of course have the veteran upgrade for free. They would have performed the same function and protected your, obviously, your cannons. And in this case, would be better against Lakota dog soldiers. Here, you're using your falconets to focus down the town centre. What I would honestly do is just retask them to the Minutemen. You've wasted, like, you know, 2, 4, 6, probably 8 shots now on that town centre, which, you know, you could have easily brought down all of these Minutemen by now, and then your musketeers would stand a much better chance at killing off the Lakota dogs. You'd probably still lose the falconets, but you'd probably end up winning the fight overall if you hadn't wasted, you know, because obviously falconets do 100 damage times 3 versus infantry, so, and these Minutemen are very strong, 26 range damage there. Putting up an outpost. Honestly though, you're spending have you sent 1,000 wood? Let me have a look. No, you haven't sent 1,000 wood. With the 250 wood you spent on that tower, I mean, yes, it gains you map control, and you could arguably say I now have control over these hunts, but you don't, because an outpost only does 0.3 versus, so it does, you know, 30 times 0.3 versus gatherers. So it's not really that effective at securing a hunt. It's better for garrisoning your own settlers in, because it, you know, you can put 25 people inside it. What I would have done with that wood is, you know, saved it up for a town centre, or built one of these, which in the long, you know, and then get the stagecoach upgrade, which is going to give you more of an economy, and then in turn you could train more military, and then in theory you could use that military to guard or pressure this hunt, and that would have been a better investment. Honestly, the only reason I would ever build an outpost with my wood is because, for example, these settlers over here would need protecting. They would need to be garrisoned inside the building. Now, sending 9 rods, I would honestly say 1,000 wood is better, or 5 settlers. Okay, so this, I think, judging by the yellow bar down the bottom here, this looks like the end of the game coming to a close. You're bringing all of your units in. okay, which is fair enough, but I would not have done it. What I personally would have waited for, you've got this town centre here, you could have called Minutemen from that, and wait for the Lakota dogs to arrive, and then bring everything in, including your Minutemen, down to this location. And then you would have, it's hard to explain, but if you think of a graph and think of an exponential curve, for each extra unit you have in a fight, it's exponentially going to benefit you. Honestly, if you think about the extra damage there and the extra hit points being soaked up, that's what it is. But here in this fight, you want to use your Musketeers to focus down the Minutemen first, just one Musketeer and one Minuteman, because it has, obviously, 1 HP. And then your next job is to kill off Musketeers at the back. There were a few in there, but you've killed them all now, because those do the most damage, 23 range damage, and have the least amount of hit points. And the final thing you would kill is the Settlers, because they have the most hit points, therefore the hardest to kill, and do the least amount of damage, so are the least threat to you. Thank you very much for watching. I hope I haven't been too condescending, and if you enjoyed this style of video, then rate it thumbs up, and if it does well, then I will think about a second episode of this. But yeah, thank you very much for sending me this, Annam, and I hope that this can reach some people who would find it useful.